afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As always, it is such a great pleasure to be able to introduce you just one more time to a stories written by a current prisoner. As always, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very interesting individual to speak to, a very interesting guest. This individual is a returning guest, one of my personal favorites. This individual is a very well spoken individual. Mr. Jonathan Watson, how are you doing today, sir?
Excellent. It's good to be back, and it's good to be around still to talk to everybody.
Oh, most definitely, Mr. Jonathan, man. The pleasure, as always, it's mine, man. I really personally like you having on the show, man, and I hope you're doing well nowadays, man.
Yeah, still a kern. Kern, nothing changes here. It's like Groundhog Day. We more or less live the same life on repeat, day in, day out. But no news is good news in prison, and I certainly enjoy the quiet repose.
Yeah, today's conversation, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be a very, very interesting conversation. But before we dive into that, Mr. Jonathan Watson, for the people out there who are first time learning about you, would you be able to inform them just briefly on who you are, sir?
Yeah. I'm a lifer in the California prison system. Have multiple homicides. Came into prison with 225 to life and collected a couple more life without paroles along the way. I recently got another, I think, 17 years or something for an incident earlier this year. And I've been in the media at various times for some homicides, particularly the 2020 event that gave me 2 dead pedophiles. So that was enough to at least put me on people's radar, and they became aware of me. People like the story, and I'm sure some people don't like the story, but for the most part, I get pretty good feedback from. I'm glad that I could be of service to everybody, and that I'm still around to offer my services.
You know, Mr. Jonathan, there's so many questions that I'm going to be asking you. But before we dive into this deep conversation, would you please inform us on this new project you got going on, man? From my understanding, you got a new book that you have just written, man. What is it about, man? What is it called?
Yeah, I did. The most recent book is called Prison, Politics, and Punk Rock. It's currently available as an ebook on Amazon, and it's exactly what the title says. It was, if you remember last year, we released a pretty beefy book, which was called Deliberate Indifference. And in Deliberate Indifference, we specifically addressed just the prison industrial complex without going too far into the fringes of the music and the culture in California and the politics of California. And for anybody that doesn't know my history, I grew up playing in hardcore bands, and I was on scene, and we were touring, and we were at different venues in different cities. And anybody who plays hardcore is almost a politician first and a musician second. And it's been really hard to not allow the political parts of my ideologies to seep in and to color the winds that I've seen prison reform through. So this new book, which is much shorter, brevity, we were really shooting for a concise book, and we were really shooting for brevity. This book allows me to weave the punk rock and the hardcore and the politics in with my ideas on prison reform, and it's a really good exercise. It allows people at a minimum to see what somebody who is a cognizant prisoner, somebody who is aware of California and the nation and not just prison, to see how they view all of this. And I should warn people, it's very important, that a lot of my views are going to be right of center. one of the very few conservatives that you'll ever encounter in prison. So whether or not people agree with the politics, I do hope that it's one of those things where people seek to hear the opinions of someone who is not a charlatan. They are a true believer. Because me and my friends do the same thing, where we look at people on the left and we look at different people and we try to pick and choose who we listen to. And it's not going to be the people on The View. We're not going to pick people who are just trying to the virtue signal and, use identity politics and grievance politics to make their points. So that's what it is. It's going to be a book that people are going to want to read, if for no other reason, just to see where somebody's mindset is, who is on the right and in prison. So, yeah.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it is now available on Amazon. The link will be right there in the comment section and in the description. Please go ahead and check it out. I promise you will not be disappointed. You have currently been serving a life sentence inside of the California prison system. Furthermore, you went and go ahead
and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
You went ahead and picked up another additional life sentences. From my understanding, you picked up another 17 years just recently. Then I'm sure you have encountered multiple different types of people who have been convicted of homicide. Would you be able to differentiate or perhaps categorize some of these different types of murderers? There's many people with homicidal tendencies from different walks of life that I'm sure you have encountered.
Yeah, I would say that as far as diversity goes, the strata of prisoner that is the killers, I say in air quotes, murderers, and in particular murderers who recommit. So not the isolated killer. I almost consider the isolated, particularly people who shoot people, I don't really want them in with us because, I don't know, anybody could pull a trigger, and that's very different than people who have killed people in close combat or people who have killed people in multiple ways. Like once you start hitting trifectas, like, I used a knife here and a cane there and a gun there, and that's a whole different kind of killer. That's a skill set. So I tend to differentiate real killers from the fake lifers or the killers that aren't really killers. I would say that there is a lot of diversity in that group, and some are social, some are asocial, some are salty, angry and bitter. Others are political. Some are do-gooders. Some are looking to affect their station in life, maybe get some good karma by taking care of some business. There's a variety of reasons why people do what they do, but for the most part, you're going to find straight shooters. There's a continuity. There's like a stream of continuity with really serious killers. And one is they don't lie. Two is that most of them aren't gang banging or actively in gangs. Three, they keep to themselves. And the lone wolf, again, that's funny because we often say, like, man, it's the lone wolf that really makes a lot of these other guys join gangs. Whenever they are evaluating, when their threat assessment software is operating in their brain and they're kind of surveying the landscape when they get to prison, it's the unknown quantity that makes them nervous, which is the lone wolf. So they immediately see the killers and they know they're killers, and they kind of meander over to the gangs and they're like, hey, well, what's up over here? Maybe I'll hang out with you guys, you know? And so it's kind of a joke with us that one of the byproducts of our presence, which raises larger questions, and that is, once again, why are they housing those types of offenders with the bona fide killers? And that's a huge conversation topic, which has gotten worse in the CDCR. When I first came to the CDCR, lifers couldn't even go off of the level 4. For people that don't know, there's 4 levels in custody. It's kind of like the Center for Disease Control. You got 4 levels, and the 4th is the worst. And for us, there's a couple of distinctions on the level 4. Like there is a lower security housing, which is 270. And then there is what is known as 180, which is the higher security level 4. So if I'm on a 180 level 4 and I'm currently actually on the smallest yard next to a shoe, I am on the smallest 180. Like they even took the 180s, which was the highest security, and chopped that up into 3 little sections on this yard. So if that's any indication as to the company that I am currently housed with, it's mind-blowing sometimes, the people that they send to this yard. They are not killers by any means, and that is a constant, vigilant thing for us, because some guys.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Other guys don't want to proliferate the prison industry by turning them into us. Other guys some guys might want to help them get home. Other guys might want to victimize them and take what they got. So killers are a wide variety of humans. And I think one of the best illustrations I have of that is that in early 2024, January, I had a situation, stabbed a dude in the neck, which is funny because I can take that same situation and I can go back 2 years. And I remember saying to a dude at High Desert that I had blasted him with just fisticuffs, just hands, and the dude was leaking and he's bleeding all over the day room. And I specifically remember telling the dude, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm up to a 2. And you're already bleeding everywhere, dude. You're embarrassed. You're in fight or flight. Your pupils are dilated. You don't know what to do. Dude, you're outgunned. You're outclassed. Just go wash your face up, dude. Take a shower. Take it to yourself. Right. So if you fast forward to last year,
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I turned it up to a 2, and I stabbed a dude in the neck. And I remember thinking, like, this was my minimum aggressive setting at this point, where I had dialed it back as far like I am trying as hard as I can to not kill this guy, and he still getting stabbed in the neck. And I thought, wow, it's 10 or 12 years really makes a difference on this journey. But I had to go to court for that. So earlier, well, what would be the later half of last year now, I was fixing to go to court for the stabbing. You want to pause right there, Tony? You want me to call you back?
Yeah, please go ahead and call back, Mr. Jonathan.
All right. So, so I was going to court for the stabbing or whatever, and I was talking to my buddy as we were walking laps, and my last really big incident was 2020, and his last big incident was either 2018 or 2019, where he had went into another dude's cell and killed that dude. And I was telling my buddy, I said, I need to get to the courthouse. I'm going to do it in one sitting, because one, it's a humiliating process. Two, I'm ashamed that I'm in prison. I'm ashamed that I have failed my family, my friends, my community. So being paraded in and out of courthouses really is just, it's something that really, it really has an effect on me. I really get low energy about the whole thing. And additionally, I don't like the idea of the taxpayer footing the bill for the whole thing. And I always bring that up when I go to court. I say, hey, look, I'm guilty. I did this. we all know I did it. Let's just get me sentenced and get the whole charade over with, because I really don't want a district attorney and a public pretender and judges and the staff for these courtrooms. I really don't want everybody sitting around milking these cases, because they do. They charge the taxpayer hundreds of hours. And then whenever you're standing there in line, they can't even pick you out of a lineup. Like, I'm the only guy with shit tattooed all over my face, and my attorney doesn't even know who I am, but then he's already charged the taxpayer 300 hours or something on my case, right? So in order to nip all that in the bud, I just want to get in and out and at least minimize the burden that I'm putting on our taxpayers. And my buddy told me, he says, it's funny because I'm the exact opposite. I feel like I was over sentenced. I feel like they took everything from me. I feel like I've never got to see a Tesla. I've never got to see drones flying. I've never, there's so many things in society that I question. And I mean, cell phones are like this phenomenal technology to him. He hasn't got to see all this stuff. He said, so I see it as my opportunity. The van ride is my view to the world. It's my window, and I get to learn and see things. And he said, how fucked up is that? At the end, he says that he would almost have somebody just for the van rides. We kind of laughed, and I thought, it's crazy how different. It's just those are diametrically opposing views, but that's prison for you, that we still get along. We still work out and do our exercises and talk about things. And I would say it was a week later, a dude showed up, and my buddy told the dude, he said, hey, where we're at now, you show your paperwork. You don't get to just hang out here and not show people all of your black and white. So the dude refused to show him the paperwork, and he knew my buddy was going to hit him with a really, really respectable knife. And the dude put on body armor, man. He tied catalogs around him and all that jazz. And he didn't have catalogs on his back, so he was standing against the wall. So when my buddy started attacking, the dude actually laid down on the ground on his back, like a turtle on his back, and he was kicking like bicycle kicking, so that my friend really couldn't get good hits with the knife. It was kind of funny. I asked my buddy later, he hit him 35 times. I think 30 something, but let's just say 35 to take wounds that were of note in the medical notes. And my buddy only did like a month and a half this time in the hole for it. And I asked him, I said, so what do you call that defense? That's gotta have some intellectual property to it right there. You armor up the front, and then you lay on your back and you bicycle kick. And we started laughing. He said, I'll call it the Ninja Turtle defense. But yeah, very different people, but killers.
Are killers born or are killers made? What separates the average human from a killer? Are killers in fact wired differently? Are their brains just different?
That's a question that people have made careers out of, isn't it? Writing books and going to college and criminology. I've been doing some reading myself on everything from broken windows theory to some various theories that would indicate that, which I agree with more, is that the lack of assertiveness on behalf of society basically makes opportunistic criminals. And I do believe that. I do believe from 15 or 16 years in prison, observing conversations of my peers, there are some common conversations that are returned to daily, like hashed and rehashed. And a really great example is where people have open carry, where people don't have firearms on them, like San Francisco, where the DAs are and are not easy on crime. So those are opportunistic criminals, but it bodes very badly that not very long ago, Newsom was actually trying to call something like, I don't want to say opportunity zones, but he was trying to mark a whole bunch of zones in California as non-carry, like no concealed carry, CCWs, nothing. He wanted no kind of firearms in these areas. And man,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
these dudes were so aware of that conversation that every day when I'm out at the pull-up bars, and I got my ears on, I just, sometimes I hear people talk and I go ask further questions, and sometimes my mind has changed on things, and other times I'm enlightened. Sometimes I'm encouraged. Other times I'm very disgruntled at a minimum with what I hear, but that's all part of the process. I don't know if prisoners are made by society. I do know that they're opportunistic, but killers, it's in them. It's in them. I don't think there's too many outside factors that are going to change the genetic wiring. I do think it can be exacerbated, and that's probably an entirely different argument. But yeah, it's easy to provoke somebody who has that predisposition, I think, definitely. But if you consider various circumstances, because I ask those questions myself a lot in books whenever I write about various laws like the Kihia law, the weaponization of the mental health system, the way that they're able to get judges to put orders on people to extract them out of their cells and basically give them chemical lobotomies with their drugs and what have you. That's a very important question moving forward, because if the cop union can do it to dudes.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Then it's only a matter of time before, a teachers union thinks that they could do that to someone's kids or something. So, I mean, humans are killers. Humans are primates. It's just a matter of where that line is. And
Mr. Jonathan, sir, based off your observation, I'm sure you have seen multiple murderers being released nowadays. So many lifers are going home nowadays. Do you in fact believe that most of these individuals are in fact remorseful, or do you feel most of them are just playing the part, to go home?
I mean, what do you think? What's your opinion on that? I'm curious what you would think of that.
Mr. Jonathan, I have indeed encountered a lot of people who I can say, either they're a hell of a good actor, man, or they have in fact indeed changed, man. So many people have changed. So many people have taken the proper steps and done everything in their favor to be released, man. Some people do in fact deserve that second chance. However, there are some people who I feel like, man, they're just one step ahead of the game and they're just playing the role. What do you think?
Yeah. Again, I think that humans come in a wide variety. I think that California is a large state with a whole plethora of people and cultures. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of variety there. I know that I've written in print that I have come across two people exactly in 16 years that I believed. When I looked in their eyes, I believed that what I saw was the truth, and I believe that this rehabilitation, which I say in air quotes, worked for them. That's it. I can only name two. And for everybody else, and one of those guys actually is now working for something called the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. His name is Tracy Seltzer, and he got out and he has made a career out of fighting recidivism and being proactive in a responsible model of prison reform. And strangely, he was one of the dudes that I cited in my book that I specifically said this is one of the guys. And it was a long shot when I said that, because Tracy was not just a killer, but he was a killer that came into the CDCR during a time that it was a real sink or swim situation. If you weren't putting in work, you were going to get victimized. So he got with the business. I mean, the dude had every offensive tattoo you could think of tattooed on him, and he was stabbing everything that moved. So to see Tracy make his sojourn from, that individual who was living at Pelican Bay and constantly in the shoe and always swinging knives at something, to full rehabilitation, that might be an outlier. That might be the minority report, and to me it is. But it also means that you can't say never. So that's good. That's good. I'm glad he exists. I'm glad that we can cite his case. Even someone, I'm jaded. I'm a very jaded human, and I'm very.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Very disgusted with this whole prison system and the kind of people that it makes. Not the people that come to it, the people that it makes. And that is a distinction that should be noted also, is that a lot of the skill sets that we've developed in prison, we did not come to prison with. And I frequently remind people that a lot of us were bartenders, managers, hairstylists, loan officers. I mean, we had careers out there that were very social. So, and we weren't stabbing people in their neck. CDCR did that.
Mr. Jonathan, man, some people, they take a life and it changes them. It changes them in multiple different ways, and I'm sure it perhaps has changed you in many different ways. However, some people decide that they may never do that again. However, some people go inside of prison and they end up taking one life, two more lives. Why do killers kill again? Why do killers kill inside of prison?
Well, there's a lot of answers to that question. Some people do it out of self-defense. Other people do it to feel like they have offset their over-sentencing. That's probably a disgusting answer morally for some people, but I, as a prisoner, understand that. Some people do it to make sure that they are not allowing the filth to exit the prison system. They feel like it is their responsibility. I mean, there are more answers to that, but I'll digress for a minute on the responsibility issue. And I'll say that you have to understand that our police are serving the mayors of these cities, and that the operational procedures for police are constantly changing right now, specifically with this massive DEI wokeism religion. It's a religion. With this happening, officers, you can watch a parade of just marching down the street and shaking their hair.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Their hairy junk in children's faces, but then one person tries to pray for the depravity that they see, and that person is hauled off to jail. And That's not the police. Unfortunately, the police are in a position where they are being used as the brown shirts of the new, what I call the new American left. But it's becoming clearer and clearer to us that there are no consequences for people, particularly that are doing things to children, and particularly a big asterisk here, people that are coming from other countries who are already, I mean, they brought in 13,000 murderers from other countries in the last 4 years. So you have to understand that they're just rolling into our country like, oh, all right, cool. Now I could just looking here too, and no one is holding them accountable. So there comes a point where prisoners aren't just being responsible. They're going to try to send a message, and it's easy to deduce that this is primarily where my mindset is as a killer. I'm becoming more and more interested in how do we make it so bad, and how do we make it so gross and horrific that people start getting the message and saying, you know, we ought not go to their country and kill their kids when they're young humans in America, because it's going to end very bad, not just a little bad, not just dead, but horrifically dead. So again, I digressed, and I apologize, but that's a very thorough answer to that aspect of the question. There are also people who are just really non-idealists, and they are just pissed. I mean, they have been used by the foster homes. They have been used by the California Teachers Association. They have been used as just a pawn on a board, moving tax money around, adding bureaucrat after bureaucrat to the swamps that are just bloated leviathan of unions in this state. And as soon as they're no longer generating money for these unions or these agencies, they're, I say aged out in air quotes, but that's a real word, that they age out. They're just passed to the next thing until eventually the CCPOA and the unions that, like the CAPT, that make up the prison industry, eventually they say, hey, we got a spot for them. So dudes are hungry. Dudes don't get deodorant in prison. Gavin Newsom has increased the budget while lowering the population of prison. Yet we get less food every year, less yard every year, less clothes every year. You know, like I have one pair of blues. I have 2 pair of state boxers. That's not what we were given when we came to prison. You know, we were given enough clothes that we could at least wash one pair of clothes and have it drying while we have another pair to wear somewhere. Or, I mean, never mind getting deodorant or toothpaste. So dudes are pissed, and that's a long answer, and it's not a complete answer, but it is at least starts to give people an idea why killers might be killers in prison.
Jonathan, do you in fact believe in the terms psychotic break? You know, I have came across many individuals who have been convicted of murder, and they use this term psychotic break. You know, they're unaware, they're unconscious for that split minute that they lost themselves and they took someone's life. Do you in fact believe that that is possible for someone to have a psychotic break, sir?
Well, I'm not a psychologist, of course. I've never experienced. No, I can't say that either, because I have. And if somebody wakes up and startles me, that can end really bad. So I cannot advise enough for everyone to please do not startle me. If you take a lot of trauma along the way, I can speak on behalf of people absolutely that have PTSD. Triggers do exist, and I'm going to throw a caveat on that. I'm going to say that I apologize to the people of our men and women in uniform, because those people have real PTSD. And I understand for prisoners to whine and snivel about PTSD is somehow it takes away from what they have went through in various theaters of war. So I apologize for that. But PTSD does exist for prisoners. Just an example is that once, I got really fucked up by custody, and it was a whole thing where I really hadn't even done anything wrong. I was just trying to avoid them, avoid their situations, and I was literally just staying in my cell. I wouldn't come out of the cell, so it's called a cell extraction. But I was once again just beaten to the point where I thought that, my neck was broken and so on and so forth. And to this day, like I got fingers that I can't close and hands that are blurred. It was bad. But I had smelled oranges. My face kind of ended up in my trash bag, which had oranges in it, and I had the orange peels. And I mean, to this day, oranges are a problem for me. When I smell oranges, it's like a fight or flight, and the heart palpitates. And so that's a little bit of the window that you could choose, if you choose to see it through that window, where if I'm already smelling things that might be triggers, and that's exacerbated by loud noises or sudden movements. I mean, I've had friends get stabbed to death, and I associate those sounds to that. So there's danger there. At a minimum, there's danger there. And then I bet that there would be physiological responses. Like if somebody was to look at my pupils, for example, I would probably be in some phase of fight or flight. But again, I'm not a psychologist, and that's beyond me. I do think that it is overused. And I can tell you absolutely that anytime that I have killed people, this is just my experience, particularly lately, I have moved into this very calm, cool, like master class where it's just I'm just putting on a clinic in homicide. And so I would say that the more you do it, actually the opposite is happening. You're not in any kind of
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I can tell you I've scared people. I have scared people, and I have watched the program that is in their mind run its various threat assessment, and their pupils definitely do dilate, and they can go wonky. I can tell that we're in a dangerous situation. Yeah.
Mr. Jonathan, sir, man, you know what? I've always been interested in the mindset of a killer, man, and how someone can just act on the split second. Perhaps it's out of anger, perhaps it's out of emotion, but they are capable of taking someone's life, man. How many people out here in society are walking on eggshells? How many people do you think a percentage are capable of killing? They're just a incident away, a whatever away of taking someone's life and becoming a life for themselves.
So to answer that, I'm gonna name drop a couple of people. I'm gonna say the Giulianis have a really good grasp on broken windows theory. And I'm also going to mention Sheriff Mark Lamb out of Arizona, because Mark Lamb, this dude is absolutely my favorite dude in criminology right now. And he understands that people in Arizona, particularly a sheriff I won't mention, has dehumanized people, defamed people. He has intentionally put them in pink underwear and so on and so forth, and exacerbated them and just worked them up into this caustic cocktail of shame and rage while they're in custody, and then launched them back into society. And Mark Lamb is, at a minimum, he is very empathetic towards the various moving parts that make up criminal thinking for people. So they speak on these things, and I think, listeners might gain a lot by listening to these people talk. Well, they might hate the Giulianis. I understand that too. And I certainly hate stop and frisk. That is not, as a libertarian, there is nothing constitutional about the stop and frisk part of the broken windows theory. But I would say that the more people create circumstances for people to commit crimes with virtually zero accountability, the more it's going to happen. So, right now, particularly in California, people are creating their own criminals and killers. They're getting what they voted for. I mean, we saw that. It's obviously they're walking back a lot of these propositions and laws right now. But I think that humans are killers, and the conditioning process, the gaslighting almost, if you will, is to convince us that we're not. I mean,
You have 60 seconds remaining.
the answer for me personally for getting all of that in check is that I exercise my combat engine as much as possible. The closer I am to like the most efficient combat prowess, the lower my daily aggression is, because I know what I'll do to people. I'll know what I'll do to people. And dangerous people to me are people that haven't had a rite of passage, or people that aren't feeling as if they're at like the apex of their physical fitness. To me, that creates people who want to prove something, like they have a chip on their shoulder and they start acting violently, if that makes sense.
100%. 100%. Mr. Jonathan, are you able to call back one more time, sir?